Have you ever tried to tickle yourself? If not, try it. Grab a feather. Run it along the sole of your foot. You can feel the feather. But what about that ticklish feeling? Did you feel it? Now give the same feather to someone else and ask them to run it across your foot. Suddenly, it feels like your own foot has become your number one enemy. But think about that for a second. The feather is the same. Your foot is the same. So why does it work when someone else does it, but not when you do it? That's where the mystery begins. And the answer isn't in the feather. It's not in your foot either. It's in something that happens before you even feel the touch. In 1998, 3 researchers decided to investigate exactly that question. Sarah Jane Blakemore, Daniel Wolpert, and Chris Frith wanted to know what happened in the brain when a person touched their own body. So they designed an experiment. They compared what happened when a person produced the touch themselves with what happened when someone else produced a similar touch. And there was a difference. When someone else produced the touch, the brain's touch processing areas responded more strongly. When the person produced the touch themselves, the response was smaller. But that created a problem. They knew that the brain treated the 2 touches differently. They still didn't know why. So the researchers tried something else. They used a robotic mechanism that allowed the participants to control a touch with the movement of one hand. That movement produced a touch on the other hand. When the movement and the touch happened together, the tickling sensation was weaker. But then the researchers introduced a small delay between the movement and the touch. At first, the delay was almost impossible to notice. Then they made it a little longer. And the farther the touch moved away from the moment the movement occurred, the stronger the tickling sensation became. Now there was an important clue. The problem wasn't simply that the person had produced the touch themselves. What mattered was how closely what actually happened matched what was expected to happen. And this brings us to something your brain does constantly. Before you move your hand, your brain already knows that you're about to move it. If you raise your arm, it knows your arm is about to move. If you turn your head, it knows your head is about to move. And that information helps your brain prepare for the sensations that are about to follow. And you've probably experienced this without ever thinking about it. Imagine you feel an itch on your arm. You don't need to look at your arm to scratch it. Your hand moves toward the exact spot. And before your fingers even get there, your brain already has an idea of what that touch is going to feel like. Now imagine something completely different. You're sitting still when you suddenly feel something crawling on your arm. You don't know what it is. You don't know where it will move next. And you don't know when you'll feel it again. That's a very different situation for your brain. One touch is connected to a movement you control. The other comes from somewhere you can't predict. And this is happening all around you every day without you ever having to think about it. One region of the brain seems to be especially important here, the cerebellum. It's known for helping control movement. But research by Blakemore, Wolpert, and Frith suggested that it also helps predict the sensory consequences of those movements. And now, we can go back to that feather. When you hold the feather, you know you're holding it. You know you're going to move your hand. You know where your hand is going. And you know that in a moment, the feather will touch your foot. Your brain has a lot of information before the touch even happens. Now compare that with someone else holding the feather. You don't know exactly when they'll start. You don't know exactly where they'll touch. You don't know whether they'll keep moving or suddenly change direction. Your brain still receives the touch, but now it has much less information about what is going to happen, and that's where the difference appears. When what actually happens matches what your brain expected, the sensation produced by your own movement can feel weaker. But when there's a bigger difference between what it expected and what actually happened, the tickling sensation becomes stronger. So maybe the real question was never simply, why can't I tickle myself? Maybe the better question is, how does my brain know what I'm going to feel before I feel it? And that question is much bigger, because your brain isn't just reacting to what's happening, it's constantly trying to predict what comes next. You pick up a glass, you walk toward a door, you scratch your face, you raise your arm. Most of the time, you never notice those predictions, because everything happens exactly as expected. But that little feather gives us a strange way to see something that is normally hidden. Your brain can use what you are about to do to prepare for what you are about to feel. And when someone else takes control of that situation, the prediction becomes much harder. That's why the same feather can feel completely different depending on who's holding it. Interesting fact. Did you know that rats can respond to tickling too? In experiments conducted by researchers Jaak Panksepp and Jeffrey Bergdorf, young rats were gently tickled by hand during play-like interactions. They responded by producing bursts of ultrasonic sounds at around 50 kilohertz, far above the range of human hearing. Researchers found that these sounds were associated with positive, playful behavior. And in another experiment, rats learned to perform a task to receive more tickling as a reward. So apparently, rats can enjoy being tickled too. And now that you know that, let's get back to the explanation. We can finally understand what happens when you try to tickle yourself. You can't really surprise your brain in the same way another person can. When you make the movement yourself, your brain already has information about what's coming. It can prepare for the sensation before it arrives. And when it knows what's coming, the touch is less surprising. And that little feather just gave us a glimpse of what your brain is doing behind the scenes every day. Interesting, isn't it? And that's just one of the many fascinating things your body does without you even noticing. Now imagine how many other things you feel every day that your brain has already predicted before you even notice them. If you want to discover what else your body and mind are doing every day without you even noticing, subscribe to the channel. There's a lot of strange stuff happening inside you that you can't even imagine. And we're here to discover, together with you, why these things happen. See you in the next video.
Hey, hey, hey!